Okay, this video is for the absolute value inequalities. So we're going to look at solving now, and it's going to be similar. We're going to take bits from the solving the equations piece and bits from what we know about solving inequalities, and we're going to kind of merge them together. So we're going to start simple. We're going to start with the absolute value of x is less than 2. If this were an equal sign, we would know that this is talking about the distance this value x is from 0, and I want it to be 2 spaces. So I would know that I would need to make it x is equal to 2 and x is equal to negative 2. But this is a inequality. So what we know when we were doing inequalities is I would solve and get x by itself. In this case, because I have 2 answers, I'm going to have to signify, well, how do I know what the inequality is for both of these answers. When I leave it and get it all simplified down so that it's just the absolute values by themselves, I'm going to leave the symbol alone and just say x is less than 2. And then when I change the sign and make it negative 2, like we do when we're solving inequalities, if I had to multiply or divide by negative, I flip the symbol. So these would be my 2 possibilities in this case. I don't have to solve for x because it's already there. So on the number line, and I'm using a number line because I only have one variable, one letter, okay, I have 2 and I have negative 2. I'm going to use open circles because it doesn't have the line underneath to signify or equal to. And I want the values to start less than 2, so that's to the left of 2. And the other one is bigger than negative 2, so that's to the right of negative 2. So all of my possible answers to make this inequality true are the values between negative 2 and 2. Okay, so then we're going to go slightly more complicated and do absolute value of x plus 8 is less than 12. Okay, so again, in order, when we were doing the equations, I needed the absolute value by itself. So I'm going to do that by subtracting 8. So now I have absolute value of x is less than 4. So this looks like our previous example. So I have to split it up, flip the sign when I flip the symbol when I flip the sign of the value. Okay, now remember, if this had ended up being a negative 4, there would be no solution because absolute value can't be have a negative distance. So just remember that. So now my number line again, I have open circles because it doesn't have the line for the to signify or equal to on the symbols. I want all the values less than 4 and all the values bigger than negative 4. So that's going this way. So again, I get all of my numbers that will make the original inequality a true statement is between negative 4 and 4. One more example on this end here. I'm going to do 8 times x plus 4, the absolute value of x plus 4 is less than or equal to 8. So again, I need to get the absolute values by themselves. I've got 8 times, so I'm going to divide both sides by 8. So that gives me absolute value of x plus 4 is less than or equal to 1. So I can split it up at this point, leave it the same, and then when I flip the sign of the 1, I have to flip the symbol, and we're going to solve it for x. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides on this one, subtract 4 from both sides on this one. I get x is less than or equal to negative 3, and x is greater than or equal to negative 5. Okay, so I'm going to put 0 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now that I have the line underneath, I'm going to use solid circles, closed in. Okay, now if I want the values less than negative 3, so that's this way. Bigger than negative 5, that's this way. So again, we get the stuff in between. So negative 4 would work, negative 4.9 would work, negative 3.1 would work. Negative 3 and negative 5 themselves would work, but negative 6 or negative 5.1, negative 2.9, those values do not make the original inequality true. Okay, let's look at if the inequality was facing the other way. So if I take the absolute value, it's going to be greater than 2 this time instead of less than 2. So The absolute values are already by themselves, so I can already just go ahead and split. Okay, leave it the same, and then when I flip the sign of the 2, I got to flip the inequality symbol. So on my number line, I have open circles again, and then I want the values that are bigger in this case than 2. That's this way. And I want the values that are smaller than -2. That's this way. So I don't get the stuff in between this time. I get the stuff on either side. All right, gets slightly more complicated. Absolute value of x minus 24 is greater than -21. So get the absolute values by themselves. I'm going to add the 24 over. So the absolute value of x is greater than, in this case, 3. Remember, if this had stayed a negative value on this side, I can't have a negative distance, so it would have been no solution. Okay, so now I can split it up, leave it the same. When I flip to a -3, I'm going to flip the sign. So I've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So I've got -3 over here. Open circles again. Okay, I want the values bigger than 3, so that's this way, and the values less than -3 is this way. So again, I get the stuff on either side. Last but not least, I have absolute value of x minus 2 plus 5 is greater than or equal to 7. So again, I need absolute values by themselves, so I'm going to subtract the 5. If there had been something out in front multiplying, I would have divided by that, but there's not in this case. So now I've got absolute value of x minus 2 is greater than or equal to 2. So I'm at the point now where I can split them apart. Flip the sign when I make it a -2. Solve for x for both of them. I've got x is greater than or equal to 4, and x is less than or equal to 0. Alright, so now I've got closed circles at 4 and 0. Okay, so then I want the values that are greater than or equal to 4. Greater than 4 is this way. Less than or equal to 0 is this way. Okay, so your homework then is going to be, oh wait, I'm sorry guys, I remember this was yesterday. This was the one that for some reason in mine, somehow I have, my copy had a different problem. So let me do the last problem that you had. So that one was a bonus. Your example 4 is x minus 3, absolute value plus 5 is greater than or equal to 6. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 5, and that's going to give me absolute value of x minus 3 is greater than or equal to 1. Okay, I can split it to x minus 3 is greater than or equal to 1, and x minus 3 is less than or equal to -1. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and that gives me x is greater than or equal to 4, and x is less than or equal to 2. For some reason, my answer key one has it, the fourth example was different than the blank copy. So I've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm going to have closed circles at 2, closed circle at 4. So I want the values bigger than 4 goes this way, less than 2 is this way. Okay, so that last one before this one here was your bonus problem, just an extra example for you. So your homework is out of the book. Check on the portal, and if you have any questions, we'll go over them next time.